2 years ago, I visited my cousin Caleb in the Ozarks. It's a different world out there. Quiet, isolated. The kind of place where people still leave their doors unlocked because the nearest neighbor is 5 miles away. Caleb is a woodsman. He knows the forest like the back of his hand. No GPS, no maps. He just knows. One morning, he dragged me out to look for mushrooms, chanterelles specifically. I'm a city girl, but I went along. We walked for hours. The deeper we went, the darker it got. The trees grew thick and gnarled, blocking out the sun. "We should head back," I said, swatting away a mosquito. "My legs are killing me." "Just a bit further," Caleb said. "There's a shortcut to the old logging road." We pushed through a dense thicket of thorns and stumbled into a small, unnatural clearing. It was perfectly round. No grass grew there, just dirt packed as hard as concrete. And in the dead center of the clearing stood a thing. "Whoa," Caleb said, stopping in his tracks. It looked like a massive tree stump at first, but as we got closer, I realized it was too smooth. It was a chopping block, a massive piece of oak worn smooth by time. And buried deep into the wood was an axe. It wasn't a modern axe. It was huge, rusted, with a handle made of dark, polished ironwood. It looked ancient. I stepped closer. "Who leaves an axe out here?" "I don't know," Caleb whispered. He looked spooked, which scared me. I looked closely at the wood of the block. It was stained, dark, almost black stains that soaked deep into the grain. And right near the blade of the axe, a fresh, wet drop of red. "Is that blood?" I asked, reaching out to touch it. "Don't," Caleb grabbed my wrist. "Now." We hiked out fast. Eventually, we reached a small lake. We sat down to catch our breath. A woman appeared from the trail. She was older, maybe 60, wearing a faded dress and carrying a basket of herbs. She smiled at us, but her eyes were sharp. "You two look like you've seen a ghost." "We found a block," Caleb said, "with an axe." The woman's smile vanished. She put down her basket. "That ain't a block for wood, honey," she said, her voice low. "That's a killing stone." "A what?" I asked. "An execution block," she said, "from the old settlement, back in the 1890s. She sat down on a rock and told us the story. Back then, this valley was home to a sect, religious zealots. They believed evil lived in these woods. One year, a sickness took the cattle. Then the children started getting sick. They blamed a woman named Ilara. They called her a witch. They tied her to a stake and tried to burn her alive. The whole town watched. The fire roared. But when the flames died down, Ilara was still there. Her clothes were ash, her skin was blackened, but she was alive. She was laughing, screaming curses at them in a language they didn't know. The townspeople were terrified. They realized fire wouldn't kill her. So the town elder dragged her to that block. He took his axe, the same axe you saw, and he took her head off. "But that was 100 years ago," I said, shivering. "Why is the axe still there?" "Because it holds her down," the woman said grimly. "If you remove the axe, she comes back." She leaned in closer. "And the blood you saw? The block gets thirsty. Once every 10 years, the locals feed it. Usually a chicken. to keep the peace." I laughed nervously. "That's a hell of a ghost story." The woman didn't laugh. "In 1978, she said, a land developer from the city bought this plot. He wanted to build cabins. He laughed at the stories too." She pointed a finger at me. "He went out there with a truck and a chain. He pulled the axe out. He wanted to take it as a souvenir." "What happened?" Caleb asked. "The next morning, his crew found him." She paused for effect. "They found him a mile deep in the woods. His body was sitting against a tree. His head was gone." "A bear?" I suggested. "No," she shook her head. "A bear tears you apart. This was a clean cut, like a razor, and they never found his head or the axe until 3 days later. The axe appeared back in the block, buried twice as deep." She picked up her basket. "You didn't touch it, did you?" she asked me. "No," I lied. I had almost touched the blood. "Good," she said. "Go home, wash your clothes, and don't look in your rearview mirror until you hit the highway." We walked back to the car in silence. I felt eyes on me the whole way, from the trees, from the shadows. When we got to the car, Caleb pointed to the hood of his truck. There, in the dust, was a handprint, but the fingers were too long, and there were 6 of them. We drove home at 90 miles an hour. I never went back to the Ozarks, and sometimes when I'm alone in the dark, I can still smell the scent of burnt wood and old blood.